So you've probably already noticed that the beard is back, yeah. And now it's very simple. I always come back from any time away with some kind of hair on my face because I don't like shaving. And when I'm on holiday, I don't shave. I mean, guys, who really likes to shave every day? If no one was looking, we'd all be hairy, yeah. So I've been away for a couple of weeks. So therefore, after the final talk in Cape Town, I thought, that's it, no more shaving for me. And then I was on holiday with two other brother priests, and it turns out that you don't have to shower very much when there are no ladies around either. So we had a great time. Lots of food, hairy faces, and a little bit smelly. But we had a great time. So, remember the last time I grew a beard? It was quite long it's not going to get that long this time, I promise. Okay, but when I came back from my time away last time, I had a really kind of long beard. And the first thing I did when I got back, the bishop invited me to a centenary mass for the diocese, where the bishop was celebrating, and every other priest of the diocese was celebrating mass. And now bear in mind, I've known these guys for like 10, 15 years, all these priests. I walk in, and the priests would come up to me, and they start introducing themselves to me. So, hello, I'm Father so-and-so. I'm like, it's me, it's James. And they were like, no way. It's because a beard apparently completely changes what you look like. And in fact, I know this because I used to walk down the streets with this beard, like when I first came back, and parishioners would walk by me. I thought that was really good. This is how I can have a coffee in secret. So it doesn't work anymore. But on a serious note, the last few weeks, I've actually been quite happy of a disguise, for not being seen for who or what I am as a priest, because I felt a large amount of shame, I must admit. Now, we must have seen in the news, particularly while I was away, some of the scandals that have arisen in the church. We had the report in America at the scale and the depth and the depravity of the abuse of young people, particularly young boys, by priests. By priests of all people. It was disgusting. There are no words that can sum up just how bad it was. But what was also bad and a source of real shame was the lengths that some bishops and members of the clergy went to cover this up, to make sure that it didn't come to light. Surely, if something is so corrupt from within, it needs to be brought out into the light of the Lord. But rather than do that, it was covered up. And these young people grew into young adults, into middle-aged people and old people, still bearing the burden of someone else's evil, of some other priest's evil. And it was shameful. And to walk around with a collar around my neck made me feel some shame, I must admit. To think that this could happen among the men of God who we entrust our souls to. Do you know? It's terrible. And then in recent times, there's this whole thing about accusations against the Pope, that even he may have had some implication in it. I pray to God it's not true, and I'm sure the truth will come to light. But it just shows you how deep these things to go when we get our priorities wrong, when we forget who we are as a church. Now, there are many reasons that a crisis like this happened. There are many reasons, multifaceted, as to why abuses of care like this can happen in any institution, and particularly in the church. But if I could sort of try and boil it down to one, or maybe one strand, I think the gospel today is actually fairly indicative. How do these corruptions from within, the evil within, how does it fester in the church? I think it's when we come to worship the church, the institution, its structures, before our Lord Jesus Christ. I think that's what it is. And Jesus nails it today in today's gospel. Here he is with his disciples. They're eating food. And it doesn't matter that Jesus may have just fed the 5,000. It doesn't matter the people he cured. It does all the miracles he did and all the great teachings he gave. What do the Pharisees care about in that moment? Jesus, you haven't washed your hands. That is the smallest of small t traditions and has nothing to do with the core message, the only message of God's saving love for us. When we come to worship the practices, when we come to worship structures, when we come to worship human authority, We always take our eyes off Jesus. And if we take our eyes off Jesus, literally means that's what it means to sin. Hamartia, the Greek word for sin in the New Testament, means to be off target. And if we are off target by 1 degree from Jesus Christ, then we sin. Because an arrow that's off target at source by 1 degree, that's maybe not off target by much. Imagine when it's traveled 100 miles. Imagine when it's traveled 2,000 years. How far off target is it? When corruptions like this arise in the church, as they always have over our 2,000-year history, it's a call from God to purification and to reorientation, for us to remember that the reason the church exists isn't for its own reputation, isn't for power in the world, it isn't to be an infallible instruction manual for people. It's to direct people to and to guide people to an encounter with the living Lord, with our Lord Jesus Christ. That's what happens when things go wrong. We forget what we're here for. Now, I've been planning for over a month to preach a series of 4 homilies in the lead up to Alpha, which starts at the end of the month. And I'm just going to mention it here because I've been thinking about this for some time while we're away. Because in our church, we are a church that runs the Alpha experience quite a lot. And we may be asking ourselves, why? What's it for? What's its purpose? Well, I think it's precisely this. It's what I'm talking about. We exist. I exist as your priests. We exist as the members of God for one thing: to be saved by a loving and an intimate relationship with our Lord Jesus Christ. We run Alpha to facilitate that encounter, because we see here that it's nothing that we do that makes the difference in a person's life. We could work as hard as possible trying to build up the reputation of the church by fixing the ceiling, by making everything look great, by making the music sound brilliant, and it would mean nothing. It would mean nothing if we weren't opening the doors to Jesus Christ. We run Alpha for that simple reason, to open the doors so that people may walk in and experience Jesus. Jesus. And the format is very simple. Who doesn't like dinner? I do. I put on 11 pounds while I was away, so I like dinner. And if you give me a free dinner, I'm coming. We may find it hard to talk about church. I find it impossible to talk about the church to my friends now. Because what leg do I have to stand on talking about the church in today's climate? 0. When I talk about Jesus, if I introduce Jesus in a conversation, people might think I'm a bit crazy. You normally would these days. But if I say, do you want some dinner? People are there. Okay? It's a free meal, it's wholesome fellowship, and a chance to hear about Jesus and how he changes lives. And then a chance to discuss that with people who are on a journey, just like me, just like you, to faith in him. So I'm going to say, if you've lost your faith in the church, as I must admit I am, I'm losing it. But if you still believe that Jesus saves, try Alpha. And if you still believe that Jesus saves, invite your friends to try Alpha, to a free dinner. That's the call this time. Because I got to admit, I never did before, or not in theory anyway, but I definitely don't place my trust in priests or in bishops or in popes. Now, that's not to say that they're all bad. It's to say that they have one thing in common with all of us. That's why God says, do not put your hope in men, in those who cannot save. My only hope is in Jesus Christ. And I'm inviting all of you, and inviting myself, to open the doors to him and invite other people to come in. Amen. Amen.